So after a long time, the Indian selection committee for the men's cricket team has finally been selected. Now, there was obviously a bit of due diligence done. The process wasn't exactly a quick one, but at the end, we have a new All India men's selection committee, and one that will be tasked with, of course, improving India's fortunes in white ball cricket particularly, but also in terms when it comes to revamping the test team just a tad. Now, I've seen a lot of criticisms from a lot of people that this selection committee doesn't really represent anything that much too different, because of course the chairman Chetan Sharma is exactly the same as it was previously. But if you take a closer look at the members of the selection committees, and that includes Chetan, it is worth noting that there's an interesting mix when it comes to players who have been giants for India at the international level, as well as those who have really been domestic cricket giants for India and who have not necessarily always gotten that much time to shine in the international level. So there's a healthy mix, a healthy balance, and that's especially important considering the fact that the BCCI has been making a lot of noise about wanting domestic cricket to matter once again. And what better way to do that really than to instill selectors who have been there, done that when it comes to the long grind of domestic cricket. So without further ado, let's quickly check in on some other interesting facts or things you may or may not have known about the current selection committee for men's cricket, starting with, of course, the chairman himself, Chetan Sharma. Now, most fans would be familiar with Chetan Sharma because, of course, he's someone who's in many ways seen as a history maker for India, and of course, he was the chairman of the previous set of selectors as well. In fact, this is his second stint as the chairman. The first time one, of course, it started all the way back in 2020. Still can't believe it's been 3 years, but that's really how long a time it's been. And this will be his second stint as the chairman of the selectors. And even if you're looking at it as a player, his pedigree is one that is beyond all doubt. Don't forget, he was the first ever man to take a World Cup hat-trick. Of course, that came against New Zealand. And of course, it is also worth noting that Chetan Sharma was a key part of the team that actually went on to beat England 2-0 in a test series in England all the way back in 1986. So as I was saying, when it comes to cricketing pedigree, you really cannot question the kind of accomplishments that this man has had during his time as a player. And whilst there is understandable criticism that comes with his being nominated as the chairman of the selectors once again, it does show that the board wants some long-term stability in even the selectors thing. So that is why they're trusting the long-term vision or whatever it is that he has in mind when it comes to the roadmap of bringing about a change and ensuring that Indian cricket's future remains a good one. Now, the other selectors, we'll quickly go over them. There is Salil Ankola. Now, Salil Ankola is one of those rather interesting cases because he's someone who, a lot of our younger viewers might know more due to his career as a celebrity. And, because he actually did spend a lot of time, a considerable amount of time, I may add, as an actor. In fact, he's done a lot of acting work in movies, whether it be local cinema, whether it be Bollywood, whether it be even TV serials. In fact, it's worth noting that he was, part of the first season of Bigg Boss 2. He ended up lasting only 6 days in the show. So he was one of the first people eliminated. But he can actually say that when Bigg Boss came to India for the first time, he was a part of that. And in recent years, he had, he went through a lot of personal issues, and it was said that he actually lost a lot of his love and a lot of passion for cricket. But he apparently had rediscovered that, in recent years, very, very recently. And that was something that, Indian legend Sachin Tendulkar had also spoken in great length about. And that's something that can be evidenced in the fact that he had actually served as Mumbai's chief selector, for quite a while. And this is, of course, a natural progression for him because he was Mumbai's chief selector. And we know for a fact that Mumbai is a powerful hub when it comes to Indian cricket. And now he's getting to be one of India's main selectors on the panel, the selection panel as well. Hopefully he can do a good job and continue to juggle what has been multiple careers for him up until this point, whether it be as a former cricketer and an actor, now of course a selector as well. The next selector is another one who Indian cricket fans in the early 2000s would be all too familiar with, Shiv Sundar Das. Now, Shiv Sundar Das was one of those rather unfortunate cases because he was someone who was backed on the merit of his domestic performances, which were very, very good, and he was long seen in certain Indian cricket circles as India's long-term answer to the need for a test match opener. Unfortunately, Das, in his first tour, which was in the West Indies, who at that point were a formidable side, he didn't really do anything great, was dropped thereafter, then only given sporadic chances. In fact, he had only 2 test runs, and both of them came against Zimbabwe. But despite the fact that his international career probably didn't reach the heights that it probably could or should have, he remained a giant of the Indian domestic game, first for Orissa and then later on for Vidarbha, which is incidentally the place where he's been nominated from, because he's not being nominated as an East Zone selector but rather as a Central Zone selector due to his affiliation to Vidarbha. Before that, he's had a lot of coaching stints as well. He's coached the Jamaica cricket team in the past. He's coached Manipur, the domestic side. He's also been the batting coach for India in the Indian women's team, rather I should say, in 2021. So he has plenty of experience, and interestingly, this is the first time that he's been named a selector, but he was almost named a selector in the 2019 selection panel as well, which was, of course, as you'd remember, being headed by MSK Prasad. Now, the reason he was eventually not named a selector at that point was because he didn't meet the retirement criteria that the BCCI had set. Now, at that point, the thing was that you had to have been retired for at least 5 years prior to being named a selector, and he hadn't been retired for that long, so he narrowly missed out, which shows that the board has always been keen to bring Das's cricketing acumen to good use when it comes to as a selector. And hopefully, now that he's finally got the chance, he will get to deliver on the promise that many people in the board have seen on him at this point, or seen in him. The other selector, the 4th selector, is Subrata Banerjee, who of course is there from the East Zone. Now, the interesting thing about Subrata Banerjee was that he didn't really get to play too much international cricket. In fact, he only ever played the 1 test match. And incidentally, that test match, which was his first and last test match, obviously therefore being his debut match, was alongside the late great Shane Warne. I mean, there are very few people who can say that, we made our debut alongside Shane Warne. Subrata Banerjee was one of them, and he made his debut alongside Shane Warne. He was part of the 1992 World Cup side, but he never really played too much cricket for India thereafter. That being said, as I said, a lot of these players are giants of the domestic system, and Subrata Banerjee definitely was that. He played a lot of first-class cricket, did reasonably well for himself, and now would be that person who they would hope can continue to use his cricketing brain and ensure that India has some good selections made in the future. And last but not the least, when it comes to the selectors, is Sridharan Sharath, who is of course from the South Zone. Now, Sridharan Sharath is another one who is a giant of domestic cricket. He played a lot of domestic cricket, and believe you me when I say he played a lot of domestic cricket, and it wasn't just down to him, unfortunately. He never played a game for India, but that wasn't really down to him. It was because of the fact that he was a middle order batsman at a time when India's middle order included the likes of Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid and VVS Lakshman. So, unfortunately, he missed out because India's middle order was so well taken care of that he had to actually make do with a career entirely in first-class cricket. That's not to say he had a poor career though, because again, if you look at just his first-class numbers, he scores 8,700 first-class runs and average over 51.17, and that deserves a lot of respect. In fact, if you look at even his List A career, it's very, very respectable in terms of just pure stats, and he too has long been seen as someone who has a great cricketing brain and could be someone who, serves Indian cricket well in some capacity or the other. He's gotten a chance to do that by being a part of this particular selection committee. Now, that's it as far as us talking about, interesting things which you may or may not have known about our selectors. If you know of any other facts about these esteemed gentlemen that you would love to share with us, you can let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap that bell icon so you know when we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Then you can also go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. And last but not the least, download the SportsTech app. Thank you all once again for joining us in this video. As always, I've been Shane Reyes. I hope to see you with us through the day, but for now, goodbye.